Hey everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're talking about 7 super rare pennies that look normal but can be worth up to $18,000. These coins have special mistakes and secrets that make them crazy valuable. You might even have one at home, so let's check and see if you're lucky. Let's kick things off with number 7, the 1941 no-mint mark wheat penny, which has been sold for as much as $12,500. Now, at first glance, the 1941 penny doesn't seem all that rare. In fact, the U.S. Mint produced a massive number of them, over 887 million, all in Philadelphia. And just so you know, coins made in Philadelphia during this time didn't have a mint mark. So if your penny just says 1941 with nothing under the date, that's totally normal. But here's where things get interesting. While the 1941 penny is common in regular condition, it becomes super valuable when it's in amazing shape. We're talking about coins that look almost brand new. Collectors are especially looking for coins graded as MS-68 red, that's mint state, with full red color. These are pennies that have never been circulated, have no scratches or damage, and still have their original shine from the day they were made. What's even cooler is that some of these 1941 pennies also have rare errors, and that's where the value really starts to climb. One type of error you might find is called a die crack. This happens when the stamp, or die, that presses the coin gets a small crack. When the coin is struck, that crack shows up as a raised line on the surface of the coin. It's a mistake, but collectors love these flaws because they're unique. Another rare error is the double die. This is when the coin design is stamped more than once but slightly out of line, causing letters and numbers to look doubled. If your 1941 penny has a double image on the date or on words like Liberty or In God We Trust, that could mean you've got a double die error, and that can seriously raise its value. There's also the off-center strike error, where the design isn't centered on the coin. Some of these can be only slightly off, but others are way off, and the more dramatic the error, the more valuable the coin might be. So, even though the 1941 wheat penny isn't rare on its own, the condition and any small minting mistakes can make a huge difference. If your coin has that bright red color, clean details, and no wear, or if it has one of these rare errors, it could be worth hundreds, or even thousands of dollars. Some of the highest grade examples have sold at auction for over $12,000, which is pretty wild when you think it's just a penny. Make sure to check your old change jars, coin albums, or even hand-me-down collections from grandparents. A shiny little 1941 penny could be worth a lot more than 1 cent. At number 6, we have the 1956 D mint wheat penny, and believe it or not, some of these have sold for as much as $18,000. Now, you might be wondering how a penny from 1956 could possibly be worth that much. After all, the Denver Mint made more than 1.09 billion of them that year. That means the coin itself is not rare in everyday condition. Most 1956 D pennies are only worth a few cents if they've been used or are worn down. But here's where things get exciting. A small number of these pennies were made with major minting errors, and that's what makes them super valuable to collectors. One of the most famous and valuable errors is called a double die obverse, or DDO for short. Obverse means the front of the coin, the side with Abraham Lincoln's face. In a DDO, the design is stamped twice by mistake, but not perfectly lined up. This creates a doubled appearance on certain parts of the coin, especially on the date, Liberty, and In God We Trust. What's cool is that this error can sometimes be seen with the naked eye, though a magnifying glass helps a lot. If the numbers or letters on your 1956 D penny look slightly blurred, stretched, or like they're shadowed or doubled, that's a strong sign you might have a DDO, and that can make the coin worth thousands. Another important thing to watch for on this penny is the repunched mint mark, also known as RPM. The D on the coin stands for the Denver Mint. Normally, the mint mark is punched once. But in some cases, the D was punched more than once, and not in exactly the same spot. This creates a kind of ghost or shadow effect where it looks like there are two, or more, Ds overlapping each other. If the repunched D is easy to see and the rest of the coin is in great condition, collectors are willing to pay big bucks for it. But that's not all. The overall condition of the coin is just as important. Collectors go wild over coins that are in uncirculated condition, especially those with a bright red finish, meaning they still have their original copper shine and haven't been handled much. These are called MS or mint state coins, and the higher the grade, like MS 66 or MS 67, the more money it can bring in. So while most 1956 D wheat pennies are common, a rare error like a DDO or RPM, combined with a top-grade condition, can turn an ordinary-looking penny into a $10,000 to $18,000 coin. It's a great example of how small details make a huge difference in the world of coin collecting. Make sure to take a close look at any 1956 D pennies you might have lying around, especially if they look extra shiny or have something unusual about the date or mint mark. You never know, that little copper coin could be your ticket to a small fortune. Coming in at number 5 on our list is the 1946 no mint mark wheat penny, which has been known to sell for as much as $14,950. At first glance, the 1946 penny might not seem very special. After all, millions of them were made, and it doesn't even have a mint mark. But there's actually a lot more to this little coin than meets the eye. Let's start with a little background. The 1946 penny is important because it was the first year the U.S. Mint went back to using copper after the end of World War II. During the war, from 1943 to 1945, the government needed copper for military equipment, so they made pennies out of steel instead. But in 1946, they switched back to the traditional copper composition. This change is part of what makes the 1946 penny interesting to collectors. While most of these pennies were made of regular copper, some rare mistakes happened during the transition, and that's where the value really shows up. Most of the 1946 pennies were made in Philadelphia, which means they don't have a mint mark under the date. That part is totally normal, but the real value comes from two key things: condition and minting errors. Let's talk about condition first. If your 1946 penny is in amazing shape, with a bright red color and no scratches, it could be worth hundreds or even thousands. These top-grade coins are often called MS 67 red or higher. MS stands for mint state, which means the coin has never been used and looks almost brand new. Red means it still has its original copper shine, just like when it left the mint. But there's more. Some 1946 pennies were struck on the wrong type of metal, and that's where things get really exciting. These are called planchet errors. A planchet is the blank piece of metal that gets stamped to become a coin. In rare cases, a 1946 penny was struck on a steel planchet left over from 1943, or even on foreign coin blanks that were accidentally used. This creates a coin that looks or feels different. It might be gray instead of red, or lighter or heavier than normal. Some even have a slightly odd ring when dropped on a table. If you have a 1946 penny that looks off, maybe it's not copper-colored or feels different in your hand, don't ignore it. These kinds of errors are rare, but when they show up, collectors will pay big money for them. Even without errors, a 1946 penny in perfect condition can still be very valuable. But when you add a rare mistake like a steel planchet or a foreign metal blank, that value can shoot up to over $14,000. So check your old pennies, you never know what you might find. Now let's talk about the 1952 D mint wheat penny, which comes in at number 4 on our list. This coin might not look like much at first, but some rare versions of it have been sold for up to $2,000. Let's start with the basics. The D in 1952, D stands for the Denver Mint, where the coin was made. In that year alone, over 746 million of these pennies were produced. That means the regular 1952 D penny is pretty common and usually only worth a few cents, especially if it's been used or shows wear and tear. But here's where things get interesting: not all of these pennies are created equal. Some were made with small mistakes that collectors are always on the hunt for. These are called mint errors, and they can make a regular-looking coin worth a lot more money. One of the most popular types of errors on the 1952 D penny is the repunched mint mark, or RPM. This happens when the small D mint mark was accidentally stamped more than once, but slightly out of place each time. When this happens, you can sometimes see a shadow or double image of the D, often called a D over D. This kind of mistake isn't supposed to happen, which makes it rare, and rarity equals value. Another error collectors look for is a die crack. This is when the metal die used to stamp the penny develops a tiny crack. That crack gets transferred to the coin, showing up as a raised line or bump on the surface. It might not sound like a big deal, but to coin collectors, it's a unique feature that makes the coin stand out. Then there are off-center strikes, which happen when the coin blank isn't lined up properly during the minting process. The result? A coin where part of the design is missing or pushed to one side. The more off-center the coin is, without losing key parts like the date, the more valuable it becomes. But aside from errors, condition is super important. The best 1952 D pennies are those that were never used and still look brand new. These are called mint state coins, or MS for short. Coins graded MS 67 red are especially valuable. Red means the penny still has its bright, original copper color, no dark spots or fading. So even though the 1952 D penny is common overall, if you find one in perfect condition or with a cool error like an RPM or off-center strike, it could be worth way more than face value. Some of these rare and flawless examples have gone for up to $2,000 at auction. That's why collectors love checking old coins carefully. You never know when a small minting mistake can turn an ordinary penny into something truly special. At number 3 on our list is the 1950 D mint wheat penny, and believe it or not, some of these have sold for as much as $2,220 at auction. So, what makes this little coin from 1950 so valuable? It all comes down to condition and rare minting mistakes, also known as RPMs, or repunched mint marks. Let's break it down. The D stands for the Denver Mint, where this penny was made. And just like many other wheat pennies from the 1950s, the Denver Mint made a lot of them, over 334 million, to be exact. So, in normal condition, these coins aren't rare. You can probably find a few in old collections, coin jars, or even from your grandparents. But here's where things get exciting. Some 1950 D pennies were struck with a minting error where the small d under the date was punched into the coin more than once. These are called RPMs, and they're one of the most searched for errors among penny collectors. In one well-known variety, the D mint mark looks like it was struck sideways, or like two DS are overlapping in slightly different directions. This kind of mistake wasn't supposed to happen, but when it did, it made each coin slightly different and much more collectible. Collectors love these kinds of errors because they're rare, and because each RPM is unique, they become even more interesting to own. Now let's talk about condition, which is just as important as the error itself. A penny from 1950 that's been in circulation, meaning it's been used in everyday life, will usually be worn down, scratched, or discolored. These are still fun to keep but not worth much. However, if your 1950 D penny looks brand new, with no scratches and a shiny red finish, it might be something special. These coins are called mint state, and they're graded using a scale that goes from MS 60 to MS 70. The higher the number, the better the condition. Coins that are graded MS 67 red or higher are extremely valuable. The term red refers to the coin's original copper color. Over time, pennies can turn brown or lose their shine. But if a penny still has that bright, reddish tone from when it was first made, collectors are willing to pay a premium for it, especially if it also has an RPM error. Even without an error, a 1950 D penny in perfect mint condition can still be worth a lot because collectors love finding older coins that have been preserved so well. So, while the 1950 D wheat penny might not be the rarest coin by mintage numbers, it stands out because of its clean design, the possibility of rare repunched mint marks, and the high prices these coins can reach when they're in top condition. It's a perfect example of how a small detail can turn a regular penny into a collector's prize. Runner-up on our list is the 1969 D Lincoln penny, which can fetch up to $7,500 in some cases. At first glance, the 1969 D penny might seem like just another modern coin, but there's a lot more going on here than meets the eye. The real value of this penny comes from minting errors and unique features that collectors look for. Let's start with the double die reverse. This is one of the most famous and sought-after errors in coin collecting. The term double die refers to when the design on a coin is struck twice by the die, but slightly out of alignment. As a result, you'll see a double image on certain parts of the coin. In the case of the 1969 D penny, collectors focus on the reverse side, especially the words Liberty and In God We Trust. When these areas look blurry or doubled, it's a sign that you might have a double die reverse. Now, here's an important note: while the 1969 D penny is valuable, the most valuable double die penny from 1969 is actually the one minted in Philadelphia, which doesn't have a mint mark. The Philadelphia version with the double die error is the rarest and the one that has reached up to $100,000 at auction in some cases. So if you're looking to cash in big, you'll want to check for a no mint mark version. That said, the 1969 D penny still holds significant value, especially if it has certain planchet errors or misalignments. The planchet is the flat piece of metal that gets stamped to create the coin. Sometimes, coins are struck on incorrect planchets, leading to unusual results. For example, some 1969 D pennies were made with planchet flaws, like being struck on a metal blank that wasn't shaped right or was slightly damaged. These flaws can cause the penny to look a little different in terms of size, shape, or thickness. If your penny has any of these irregularities, it could be worth checking out by a professional. Another rare error that some 1969 D pennies might have is a misaligned strike. This happens when the coin isn't properly lined up during the minting process, resulting in a design that's off-center. While not as dramatic as a double die, an off-center strike can still make the coin more valuable, especially if the design is clearly visible and not too damaged. During this time, there were also occasional transitional planchet errors, meaning some pennies were struck using the wrong type of metal. For example, the 1969 pennies could have been struck using a mix of copper and zinc that was different from the normal copper penny planchet. These transitional errors can make the coins even more valuable to collectors, especially if the mistake is noticeable. So, while the 1969 D Lincoln penny might not have the same level of fame as some other rarer pennies, its unique errors like the double die reverse, planchet flaws, and misalignments make it highly desirable. When found in mint state or with these rare features, it's easy to see why some of these pennies can be worth up to $7,500 or more. And finally, number one on our list today is the 1960 D mint mark penny, which can be worth up to $4,000, and here's why. The 1960 penny is famous for one major reason: the small date versus large date varieties. In 1960, the U.S. Mint decided to change the size of the numbers in the date on the Lincoln penny. Some pennies that year were struck with a large date, where the numbers are taller, and others with a small date, where the numbers are smaller and more compact. But what really excites collectors is a rare variety called the small date over large date, also known as the overdate variety. This happens when a penny was struck with the small date die over a large date die. So, when you look closely at the 1960 penny, you can see the small date that's overlapping or struck on top of the large date. This is a mistake that was made during the minting process, and it makes the coin incredibly valuable to collectors. The small date over large date variety is one of the most sought-after Lincoln cent errors because it's relatively rare. While most of the 1960 pennies don't have this error, when it does show up, it's a big find for coin collectors. The best part is, you can usually spot this variety just by examining the date carefully. If the top of the 6 or 0 looks a little odd, or if you can make out parts of the larger digits underneath the small date, you've got yourself a valuable penny. But there's more. The condition of the coin is just as important as the error itself. Like many valuable coins, the 1960 D penny in great condition can be worth a lot more than one that's been worn down. Collectors are looking for pennies in mint state, meaning they're in perfect or near perfect condition with very few signs of wear. A coin graded MS 66 red or higher is considered to be in excellent shape, with its original copper red color intact. The brighter and cleaner the coin looks, the more money it can fetch. When you combine the rare overdate error with a high-grade coin, you've got a serious collector's item. A 1960D penny in great condition with this special error could be worth up to $4,000. That's a huge amount of money for a penny that's not even 70 years old. So if you happen to have a 1960D penny, make sure to check the date closely. If you see signs of an overdate, or if the penny still has its original luster in perfect condition, you might have a hidden gem on your hands. It's a great example of how something as simple as a small mistake in the minting process can turn an ordinary penny into a valuable treasure. Whether you find a small date or a rare overdate, the 1960D penny could be the key to your next big coin collecting win. And there you have it, 7 pennies from American history that could be worth hundreds, even thousands of dollars if you've got the right one. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment if you've got any cool coins at home. Who knows, you might be sitting on a mini jackpot without even realizing it. Thanks for watching, and until next time, happy hunting.